Hi, Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast, and I'm continuing to start looking at the 2026 NFL draft as we're coming towards the end of the college season. The other day I gave you a December update on the quarterbacks. Well, this will be likewise, but for the running backs. So the quarterback picture, like I say, I don't see it as a very pretty one right now, but is the outlook for this running back class looking any better? Now, I'm going to start making the case for the running backs first of all, so just bear with me while I go through this. In the last four drafts, starting in 2022, James Cook, Kenneth Walker, and Brees Hall all came out. In 2023, Jameer Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, and Devon Achane. 2024, Trey Benson and Bucky Irvin. And last year, a bumper crop of Ashton Johnson, Amarian Hampton, Quinshon Judkins, Treveon Henderson, and RJ Henderson, as well as Cam Scatterbo and Woody Marks, make it 15 running backs that have made a significant impact early in their NFL careers. And that's not even counting the likes of Kyron Williams, Zach Charbonnet, Rashad White, Kyle Monangai, Chase Brown, and Tyler Algier. So in total, 21 running backs there to add to the considerable value of Derek Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, and Jonathan Taylor, showing why running backs should be valued and why the fact this position was becoming unfashionable in recent drafts is simply pretty unfathomable to me. Barkley's big part in the Eagles' championship season and the impact of Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and Jameer Gibbs for their teams this season has surely put an end to that line of thinking. Others that have been drafted in the first three rounds of drafts since 22 include the likes of Brian Robinson, Tyrion Davis Price, Kendre Miller, Tajay Spears, Tank Bigsby, Jonathan Brooks, Blake Corum, Marshall Lloyd, and Caleb Johnson. I'm making this point about just to show how many are hits and misses. Of those, Robinson, Spears, Bigsby, and Corum may have ultimately settled into running back two roles, but only Davis Price proved to be a complete bust so far. Brooks and Miller may be headed that way due to recurring injuries, and the same might be said of Marshall and Lloyd, whilst Caleb Johnson has not had an opportunity in his first season, so the jury is still out on him. And like I say, my point is that you get far more draft hits than misses with running backs as compared to, say, quarterbacks or running backs, where more seem to be complete busts than is the case with running back. So I see it as a fair, safer, and value pick. Yes, the fact that Saquon Barkley, Derek Henry, Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara, Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, Kareem Hunt, plus the currently inactive Joe Mixon and James Conner are the 9 running back ones that have been in the league for more than 6 seasons, including this one. And that does show the relatively short shelf life of this position compared to others. But drafting a good one every 5 years would still be a pretty good idea for any NFL team. So if I were a team who's not happy with their running game and or as a running back one with 5 or more years in the league, I would be keen to take a running back in the first 3 or 4 rounds of this draft for sure. 17 teams do not fall into that category, but the other 15 might consider doing so. But they're not going to be 15 decent candidates to pick from this draft. If you consider 6 good ones emerged from a very good class in last year's draft, then we should not really expect more than 6 in any one year. But this class does look a very strong class, from which I'm going to suggest a dozen that may all justify selection in the first half of the 2026 draft. There may well be 6 starting running backs in here, and there may be another 4, 3 or 4 that are going to be good running back twos. So with a 1 or 2 that may not pan out in that way. But let's have a look at them. So let's start with the best guy in the draft and probably the only one who's going to is sure to go in round 1 right now. Well, he is the only one sure to go in round 1. Jeremiah Love, a junior out of Notre Dame. Love came into the season as a leading running back candidate and has firmly cemented and enhanced his chances of being the first running back taken in this draft. He has 1,652 scrimmage yards and 21 touchdowns in just 12 games, following a 1,362-yard and 19 touchdown season as a sophomore. This shows Love is the real deal, and although predominantly a threat on the ground, he does have use in the passing game, which is rare in this class. He has 517 yards and 5 touchdowns receiving across the last 2 seasons. For me, that makes him a top 10 overall candidate in the 2026 draft. And if you look at teams that might be looking at early in this draft for a running back. They might include Tennessee, New Orleans, Washington, Arizona, Cincinnati, or Minnesota. They could all look in his direction early in round one. So after Love, I've got another five, starting with a couple of borderline round one and round two guys as I see him at the moment. Um, so, like I say, Love is the only one nearing Ashton Gionte type numbers in this college season. There are four already north of 900 yards and with double-digit touchdowns this season, though. Let's have a quick coffee. Lubricate the larynx. Right, Jonah Coleman, a senior out of Washington, is the first. Coleman's 1,017 yards and six touchdowns this season make it 3 seasons in a row with over 1,000 yards, and his touchdown numbers have gone from 6 to 10 and now 16 in those 3 seasons, giving him the look of a highly dependable quality running back for NFL teams to look at on day two of the draft. Next up, Catron Allen is the first of two out of the same school. He's a junior at Penn State. Much as Quinshon Judkins and Trayvon Henderson both came out of Ohio State last season, Allen is the first of two Nittany Lions who do likewise in 2026. As with Henderson and Judkins, it will be for teams to evaluate which is the better for them. But Allen has the better numbers this season with 1,371 scrimmage yards and 15 touchdowns, which now give him 4,670 yards and 43 touchdowns in his time at Penn State across 4 very consistent years. This is his best year, though. He is almost exclusively a runner with minimal production as a receiver at Penn State. So those two, like I say, I think are probably round two, but they've got a chance of squeaking into round one. But these guys are now more solid round two and may even dip towards round three, but they're probably in round two territory at the moment, starting with Damond Claiborne, a senior at Wake Forest. Claiborne has 1,047 yards and 10 touchdowns this season, which is actually down on his previous season numbers of 1,303 yards and 13 scores. But 2 years of good production mark him as another day two possible for a team looking for a runner. Nearly 90% of Claiborne's production this season has been on the ground. Justice Haynes is the next one, a junior at Michigan. Haynes' season has been curtailed by foot surgery, but in just 7 games, he has put up 907 yards and 10 touchdowns, almost exclusively on the ground once again. He did not put up anywhere near those numbers in 2 seasons at Alabama prior to joining the Wolverines, so he does not have the sustained production of others and will need to show he's over the foot injury. But he's another who will have teams looking at him as a day two possible. Now, on the foot injury, I have a bit of a beef here as well with teams that let players slide because they're recovering from injury. You're drafting a player early in the draft because you want him for the next 5 or 6 years, not the next 5 or 6 months. So you have to look past that injury as long as it's not some sort of crippling injury. So really, players shouldn't slide on the basis of a foot surgery. So anyway, that's my beef over. Uh, Moving on to the second Penn State guy, Nick Singleton, the senior. And here he is, the second Nittany Lion, as I mentioned earlier. Singleton probably came into this season as the running back one for Penn State in a committee, and has been outperformed numerically by Catron Allen. He deals though has a very respectable 768 yards and 14 touchdowns this season. And with a 4:39:40 time, according to DraftBuzz, he will get scouts' attention for sure as one of the quicker running backs in this class. More of a dual threat than Allen. It just depends what type of back a team is looking for when deciding between the two. Across his 4 years at Penn, he has 4,448 yards and 54 touchdowns. Less yards, but more touchdowns than Allen. So, like I say, it might well be a case of pick your poison between those two. Who's the better fit for you? So they're the top six. They're the ones most likely to make up into lead running backs in the NFL. But there's still more to come. There's 5 more I want to have a look at, starting with Jamari Taylor, a senior at Virginia. Now we're getting into borderline round two, round three territory. Taylor's put up 1,216 yards and 14 touchdowns for the Cavs, having transferred from lowly North Carolina Central. So he only has 1 year of numbers at top college level to make his case. Just shy of 1,000 of those yards, and all of the touchdowns have come on the ground. With not a lot of high-profile game time behind him, he may well need a strong bowl stroke combine season to build up to the draft to get him into day two, though. Daylan Hollywood Smothers, a sophomore at NC State. Smothers has backed up a 834-yard and 8-touchdown first season at State, with 1,128 yards and 7 touchdowns this season. As a sophomore, he may well elect to delay entering the draft beyond 2026. If he does enter the draft, he is another who would need to show up well in pre-draft activities to get into day two. Next, and again, this is the second of a pair of running backs from the same school. Jadarian Price Jr. at Notre Dame, operating as the clear running back two behind Love at Notre Dame. Price has still managed to record 761 yards and 13 touchdowns this season. But if he is the running back two here, then could that be his role at the next level, which could limit him to a day three selection? But he's got every chance of getting into day two as well because he's played really well. Of course, assuming the Love moves on, and he has another year of eligibility left, Price, he could stay on for his senior year with the Fighting Irish and try to show he is worthy of running back one consideration and maybe even a round one pick next time around. But let's see what happens there. Moving on, so now 5 more. I've actually gone more than that. Thinking about it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I've got 6. So I just realised that. Trey Wisner is the next, though, junior at Texas. Wisner missed time in September, but has clearly become the guy for Texas in the backfield with 743 yards with just 4 touchdowns to his name in 9 games this season. The TD numbers in particular do not compare well with others previously mentioned, so another who looks more day 3 than day 2 right now. Next guy, Darius Taylor Jr. at Minnesota. Taylor had an impressive 891 yards and 5 touchdowns as a freshman in 2023. Increased that to 1,336 yards as 12 touchdowns as a junior. So his 706 yards and just 3 touchdowns this season represent a downturn in production. Why those numbers are down is a question teams will ask themselves, and one Taylor will need to provide good answers to if he is to get into day 2 of the 2026 draft. Right, quick sip of coffee before I go to the last guy. My list of a dozen I've given you. Mark Fletcher, junior at Miami. In 2024, Fletcher had 713 yards and 9 touchdowns as he upped some nice numbers as a freshman, upped on some nice numbers as a freshman in 2023. Now he has continued to improve numerically with 792 yards and 11 touchdowns. But are those numbers good enough in what looks like a good running back class to get him out of day 3? That's the question. So I would say Fletcher, Taylor, Wisner are all definitely sort of running back 2s at the next level. Jadarian Price, see whether he comes out or stays on to try and make his case for being a running back 1. Hollywood Smothers the same. Jamari Taylor, now he could be one that makes up in the running back 1. And then, like I say, you've got Singleton, Haynes, Claiborne, who have a chance of being running back 1s, but could be running back 2s. Allen, Coleman, and Love, I all see as lead running backs for NFL teams at the next level, and Love will go early in the draft. So that's how I see the running back class as of right now. My next piece in this sort of environment will be to cover the wide receivers. So look for that early next week. But tomorrow I'll come back with the remainder of me week 14 preview of the NFL games. So look for those coming up soon. Take care now.